As in previous rounds, the fighting between Israel and Hamas last May drew international attention, often condemnation of Israel due to civilian casualties in Gaza. Reports from Hamas, the IDF, and humanitarian organizations have large differences in their final tally of casualties and how many of them were actually combatants. In an attempt to make sense of the numbers, analysts at the Meir Amit Intelligence Center conducted hundreds of hours of research of 257 casualties listed by Palestinian sources.
The name of the person that was killed is given by the Palestinian human rights, so to speak, organizations and by Hamas. And the only thing that is that for them, everyone is a civilian. So from there on, we have to start our effort to find out who actually this person was.
Excluding 21 casualties likely killed by some 680 misfired Gazan rockets that landed inside the Strip, the study found 48% of the casualties to be militants.
114 of them were actually affiliated with terror groups, mostly with Hamas. More than 60 were from Hamas. About 20 were from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. More than 20, a little bit more than 20 were members of Fatah.
Some of those include minors, such as the case of Mohammed Saber Ibrahim.
In this case, the New York Times considered this child as a citizen, as a victim of war.
Although his social media account shows he was part of the Hamas military wing. In other cases, the age of the fatalities were misrepresented.
During the operation, the Human Rights Centers, and after that, the New York Times published that Khaled El-Kanud was one of the children that Israel killed in the operation, and he was 17 years old.
Again, the social media analysis shows otherwise.
This is the announcement of the Mujahideen Brigades that he was 20 years old, and this is his photo with the uniform of the organization.
Another case, drivers transporting militants to rocket launching locations reported as civilian taxi drivers.
When we look at the Palestinian information, we saw that the taxi driver were killed with the operative of Hamas at the same time and the same place.
Still, some of the casualties are civilians, and there is some fallout among the population with the Hamas leadership. Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar even admitted in a speech after the operation that Hamas bears some responsibility for the proximity of military installations to civilian centers, as do the Islamic Jihad. The accidental explosion of a weapons cache located inside the Azawiya market, killing one and injuring several others, is one example of how terror groups knowingly endanger civilian populations. But Hamas and Islamic Jihad aren't expected to change their modus operandi for both practical and tactical reasons.
When you dig these tunnels underneath the city and take them as your main shelter and the main operation center and so on and so forth, it's very difficult to take a tunnel and move it to another place. The tunnels are there.
Thus, when the next round of fighting comes, it will likely play out in a similar manner as it did in May.